cut. Here they are. Holes are cut, and then there's the other side. Like I said, you know, not quite as square as the top, but this part's going to be covered up by our white sheet anyways. So let's go ahead, and I got PVA foam glue this time around. I don't know if it's any different. It was the same price as the other glue that I bought. It says dries clear, flexible bond, water-based, non-toxic, acid-free. So hopefully it won't melt the foam, but we'll get a good bond. Now I'm going to put this stuff on pretty liberally. If you get too much, you can always scrape some off as it squeezes out. But I'd rather get too much on in this case than not enough, because I want to make sure these bottoms stay pretty tight. So there's with the glue on it. So there it is, glued. I'm going to go ahead and get something a little heavier and just to set on top of this, just to make sure that we get a nice good seal as it dries. So I will be back and we'll show you the finished product. Alright guys, it's been about an hour. That's what the glue says, to give it at least an hour to set up. And as you can see, I stacked extra foam sheets, book I had down here, the rhinos, and the two things of glue here on top of it just to hold it flat while it was setting up. And there it is. Seems to already be stuck very well to it. Go ahead and slide the rhinos in. And there it goes. Loose head there. But that's it. So you guys can see it's in there pretty tight. Now again, this was the 3-inch foam, so there's plenty of room, even for my Predator. 3 inches is going to be fine. You know, I can do probably 2 Preds and maybe some storage in the middle here, various, because I'm magnetizing the weapons. You know, I can do a couple cutouts in the middle here to put various weapons in here, and do a Predator with the turret still on top of it, no problem. The other thing I wanted to point out, I forgot to mention this because the guy down at the shop's blog actually does have it in there. He mentions make sure you save the pieces that you cut out, because if this was more open space in here, or say I want to take off some pieces and I want to go back and fill this, well, just make sure that you mark which spot you cut these out of. In this case, it's not a big deal because all 3 of them are the same size. But once I start putting the troop trays together, I'm gonna, you know, trace them out a little bit more, and, you know, depending on the weapons and the figures, they can vary quite a bit. So just make sure that you save the pieces that you cut out, because you can always trim them up. You know, take 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch off, you know, cut it along here, and then use it as a topper in here just to keep holding them tight, so that once we put our, you know, the other one, once I get the bottom and this one cut out, you know, it'll go right on top of there. And, you know, with the extra foam inside here, you know, it's going to make it even more sturdy once they're all stacked on top of each other. So again, just to review, this was 3 inch by 14 by 14, and you can see how the rhinos came out. So if you play other armies but you know the height of the rhinos, you can get an idea of what you want here. I'm going to use 2 inch for the troops. The reason why is I can actually, most of the troops, I can actually just cut a square and drop the troops straight in. Some of the other ones, Emperor's Champion, Grimaldus, they're a little bit wider, you know, depending on weapons sticking up. Then I'm probably going to trace them out and lay them in flat rather than going straight down in. But I'm going to do the 2 inch for the troops, 3 inch for my vehicles. Again, some of the items I used, the foam glue, again, I got this at the local hobby store. Didn't end up really needing a scissors. Again, it depends on the type of scissors that you have and the foam you use. You might end up being able to cut through some of it. Sharpie pen, again, just to mark off where I'm going to cut. If you can't draw a straight line like me, make sure you get a square to use. You know, I made this a lot easier. I just made sure that I line up the side that I haven't cut, because I know it's straight, and I just line up like that and then traced my line and just did that all the way around. Depending on the surface you're using, you know, you might want to get a cutting mat. This is actually on my dining room table right now. Bigger workspace for me to use in this case, so I made sure I brought this down so I didn't cut up the table. Tape measure, ruler, something like that that you can measure off with. Utility knife, X-Acto, perhaps. Just make sure that the blade, the longer the better in this case, because like I was doing, it let me actually cut almost all the way through, where all I had to do was basically pull the foam over and lift it up and just basically finish off the whole way through. So then, mention the foam, and then again, you know, get some foam sheets. This was 3mm. You know, if you're playing this out, you could probably be even more economical than I was. You know, I ended up with a little bit of waste. Not too worried about these pieces because I'll end up using them for stuff or elsewhere. But in this case, you know, I ended up cutting off both of these pieces here. So I mean, that's a considerable waste. You know, like I said, I'll end up using it somewhere. I'm not too worried about that. But if you can get these sheets where maybe, you know, they could have been the exact size going this way. You know, if it was 13 inches this way, you know, you could have made 3 cuts across this and been good with it. So that's pretty much it. Hopefully you guys had an understanding. If you have any questions about this, feel free to ask me. Again, you know, this is 7.5 inches this way, 13 inches across, or actually it's 7 inches because I ended up using the 14 by 14. But it'll end up fitting into the Sable Transport, most of the ones, because their figure foam tray are 7.5 by 13. So all I'm losing is about a 1/2 inch, you know, coming this way, about, you know, 1/2 inch here. So other than that, it should fit right into their carrying cases, which I like their carrying cases anyways. They have sales on their cases all the time. If you didn't know, they actually just had one to finish up in October. I haven't looked to see what their November deal is, but the October one, they were doing a, I think it was their battalion case was $59.99 empty, which in essence was 2 of their cases stacked on top of one another. I don't remember how many inches of tray it would have fit, but you know, in this case, you know, I could have easily probably put maybe 2 of these and maybe 2 or 3 of the 2-inch foams in each one of them. So you know that's going to hold a lot of troops. So hopefully you guys got some useful information out of this. If you have any other questions, feel free to give me a private message or comment at the bottom and I'll try to help you out. Thanks guys.